Okay, now we're recording. Hello, everybody. This is week 4 of the June time crunch. Today is June 28th, and this is the last Q&A session recorded and uploaded to YouTube. With me online today are Jennifer and Kate, and I have a few questions that people ask in the Slack forum during the course of the week. Kate has agreed kindly to a one-on-one session here live this morning, and we've been exchanging some questions on email. You still ready to do that, Kate?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay,
to go.
wonderful. And Jennifer is going to listen in, and then after, I'm going to make sure we don't get too far in time, maybe 20 minutes or so, and then we'll still have time for other questions. Okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So what I asked Kate to do was to come up with a concise question, what she wants to discuss in the session. So that would be kind of, for every coaching session, you formulate what you want to explore. And her question, she did a really nice job. I'm going to read that. How can I best keep track of my commitments and schedule in a portable form that is easy to use and doesn't make me feel stressed or guilty? So there's a lot in that question, Kate.
Yes.
Really well done. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then hopefully we'll come closer to what such a tool might look like for you. I mean, I can't, and I don't want to advise you on what works for me, because I'm not you. I want to explore with you what kind of features such a tool would need to have for you to be useful.
Great.
Okay?
Sounds good.
So I'll ask you a few questions. What would you like to have at the end of our short conversation?
I think I guess what would be the most helpful for me is to have some, I usually work best with concrete plans of action. So maybe a new method I could try, or a way to sort of pare down what I'm already doing.
Okay, so a new method to try, and you want some concrete kind of plan of action, something for you to do.
Plan of action.
Okay, great. Here's another question for you. Why is this important to you?
This is important for me because I'm juggling a lot of things, and I feel like my current method creates a lot of clutter and stress rather than it doesn't really do that much for me. And I think that in streamlining all the other areas of my workflow this month, this has remained the area that I just feel like I do not have a good grasp on. So yeah, that's why it's important.
Okay, do I hear you mentioned stress and guilt in your question?
Yeah. Stress and guilt, and it creates, I write notes on everything. I end up with a lot of small pieces of paper. I don't use them. I can't find them when I'm looking for them. Mm-hmm. And since I'm juggling a bunch of different kinds of work responsibilities, I'm a PhD student in addition to a translator, and I also teach. And I have a lot of long-term deadlines and short-term deadlines and self-imposed deadlines. And my current system is just not helping me tackle any of that.
Yes, it sounds like a lot of challenges on your plate there with long-term and short-term things.
Well, I think it's been encouraging to see how those are really things that we're all dealing with in different ways. But it's made me feel like there should be a better way. So.
Okay. Now here's another question. What would you need to overcome? What kind of obstacle is there in the way for you to come to a better method?
I think there are two things. The first thing is that I have impulse to just really write everything down. I process things pretty verbally, so it's the same when I'm note-taking in school. Pretty much everything gets written down, and I think that's almost as important as anything else, just the fact that it does get written down. So I think that's probably a problem because absolutely everything is going on the list. Everything that I'm worried about, everything that I need to do, and some, things that I'm going to do anyway.
Okay.
So I think that just impulse to write everything down is an obstacle. And the second obstacle is maybe more abstract, but sometimes I feel that I feel like a lot of my friends have really good systems that work for them. And so I have a tendency to say, oh, that seems to be really working well. I'll try that for a while. And then I do, and inevitably it doesn't really work as well as I think it should. But I don't know when to say, okay, this didn't work for me, or I need to modify this. So I think I either waffle between trying things for a really short period of time and just saying, forget it, this is not the way to go, or sticking with something too long and not really getting anything from it, and finding that it's just making me more stressed. So I think those are my two obstacles.
Okay, that's really good insight. Yeah. Tell me of a tool that you've used recently where that was the case.
The most recent thing that I've been trying is to use Post-it notes for different kinds of responsibilities, to sort of keep things that are sort of self-imposed deadlines versus short-term deadlines and long-term deadlines organized. And that's been kind of nice because I can see them right away. But I found that I actually don't like seeing long-term or short-term deadlines just in my daily life. Like I have them on the wall and I walk past them and I think, actually, this is just visual clutter and it makes me stressed and it's not productive. So I think that method almost could work for sort of some of the self-imposed things where it's like, that would be a good thing to do if I had 20 minutes free, or, it's a reminder that those tasks exist and can be worked on.
Okay. So the visual aspect is important.
I actually think the visual aspect isn't usually super important. I'm not very visual, so I think or I'm learning more and more, like color coding doesn't really do anything for me.
Okay.
More of a accessibility. Like I want to be able to have it somewhere where I know where it is. And so this has really stuck out in contrast to my list making, where like I just don't know where they are. I don't like, it's kind of a mess. So I think that's the big advantage.
Okay. So what's been your preference in terms of paper or digital? Have you discovered anything there?
I definitely prefer paper, but I think it also encourages like a couple bad habits. Like writing down too many things, or writing things down multiple times, or not actually double check.
Are you finding that writing tasks down in that paper longhand format helps you with your follow through?
I don't know if it helps me with my follow through, but it feels less anxious when I actually sit down and do it.
Okay.
If that makes
can I ask everybody who's not Kate on this call to mute their microphones, please, because we're getting some interference. We will have a chance for discussion after, but right now I'm talking just to Kate to give her an idea what that might look like. Thank you. So several things come to mind here. I see you with lots and lots of notes.
Yes.
In an effort to capture everything.
Yes.
But that same capturing effort isn't serving you for the actual goal.
Yes.
When you write something down, is that because you're afraid you may forget about it?
I'm not even sure. I mean, maybe, hopefully, maybe it's a reflex. I can't really tell. I mean, there are some things that I definitely want to remember, and those things usually get written down
Okay.
multiple times in multiple places, which again isn't really helping me. But I think there's really this just, it's almost just like an instinct to just catalog everything. And it's clearly not really serving me well at this point.
Okay. So the cataloging, it may have a purpose because you have developed this habit for some reason, but it may not be the same thing as this planning tool that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point.
In your question, you talked about portable. What does that look like to you?
I think ideally, if I could find something that's in like a journal form, that would be good.
Okay.
I do a lot of traveling for school and for work, and it's important to be able to have something big enough that I can find it easily,
Yes.
both in my office and in my sort of suitcase. And so I found that loose pieces of paper don't really work for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be nice to be able to sort of distill what I'm doing into a more concise and meaningful way. And I have notebooks that come with me anyway because they have my research in them. And I also do literary translation. So I have drafts in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I already have like the physical object that could serve that function.
Okay. So I'm getting an image here of tabs.
Yes.
There's
I don't
different areas.
Yeah.
Has any kind of tabbed product worked for you before?
To be honest, I haven't really tried a tabbed product, and this might have something to do with my general aversion to like tabs on the internet. I don't know, it just, I do too many of them, it's a big mess. So I think I would need to understand a little bit more about like structurally how to just how practically what that looks like.
Okay.
Just something I haven't really given any thought to.
Okay. So I'm going to suggest the idea of a spiral notebook.
Okay.
Right. So like in middle school or high school, the kids can buy those spiral notebooks for multiple subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're all in the same spiral notebook, but they have different tabs. So one for math and one for English, and you get it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing can't come apart. You can't forget your English notebook at home because they're all in one piece.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. And then what would you recommend in terms of like separating out? I mean, would you use the tabs sort of temporally in terms of the kind of deadline it is or the kind of work it is, or
that really depends on what we discussed the other day about your time horizon, right? How you think of time. That system you build would have to reflect that to be really effective for you.
Yeah.
So what do you believe your time horizon is?
I haven't really figured it out yet. I was trying to think after listening to that the other day. I feel like I'm not very consistent on that. If that's, I don't know if that's possible.
Possibly because you have so many different activities. There's different time horizons for those.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times, maybe it's like a couple months, 4 months. It's pretty long. It is
long? Okay. So those notes, I mean, the stuff you write down on those notes you make for yourself, how far out do they go?
They go out pretty far.
Okay.
They go out pretty far. Because I have some sort of abstract things that are, I guess one of the things that I'm doing because I'm working on literary translation is I have to submit things to journals. So that obvious, I mean, basically what my work process will look like for this particular kind of project. And I do like market research translation with super fast turnaround too. So there's a big range. But basically with a literary project, I'll do a draft. I'll sit on the draft for maybe a week or two, then I'll polish it, sit on it for a couple more weeks. So it's almost like a sort of 6-month process, which is mostly waiting. But then at the end of that, so basically in my notes, it'll be like, submit this at some point, and there'll probably be a 3-month window. That's 3 to 9 months.
Okay.
Line. But you know, I almost feel like having something in a calendar form would be more useful for those things.
Okay.
Or like, you know, buy a plane ticket to wherever in 2 months. Like, it's
Yeah.
the list doesn't really capture when things need to be done.
Okay. Are you a grid person? Do you think in calendar grids?
Not really, but I'm currently living with a partner who does and who needs to know where I'm gonna be. So I'm trying to embrace that a little bit. So currently I have a big calendar that this is totally new within the last maybe month or so, but I have a big sort of 6 months of calendar printed out on one wall that also has sort of long-term or medium to long-term things, as well as my teaching schedule. And that seems to be pretty good. But then if I go somewhere, I don't have it.
Yes.
and that's kind of a problem, right?
Okay.
So,
and that's why that portable thing comes in again.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming you've experimented with online kind of Google calendars or something.
Yeah, I have, and I think because of the I don't know, I had some issues with that just because of time changes. Like I'm
Yes.
if I'm in a lot of time zones, you tend to get notices when you don't want to get them. And also I have a little bit of like a tech aversion because I get, as I'm sure all of us do, I get too many emails. I hate getting emails.
So all of that points us toward an analog solution for you.
Yeah,
that would be. Want it to be portable. I'm thinking you want something tangible.
Yes.
Okay.
I love a physical object is
a physical object. Okay, so that would be part of, if we're putting together a list of what kind of characteristics should your solution have, that would be one of the characteristics.
Yes.
So I'm going to write that down. So analog, and so you have the wall calendar at home, but that's not always visible to you.
Yes.
So you're looking for a way to transfer whatever the calendar says for your travels.
Yes.
How long are your trips typically?
Anywhere between 2 days and 4 months.
Okay.
It's a lot of stuff going on, and it's not super. I mean, usually I know when I'm going in advance, so I can prepare, but it's hard sort of finding time to copy all those things down, or like if I'm away, I have to keep my calendar somewhere else, and then it's hard sort of updating the master calendar.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's also important, I mean, maybe this is just covered by the sort of tangible thing, has to be something that's like durable enough. If it gets banged up a little bit, it can still exist. And hopefully it won't get wet, but realistically, maybe it will get.
It could, yes.
So I think that's important. And then I think something that's sort of as visually clear as possible. Like I think I have a real, the irony of this whole list taking thing is I have a real aversion to visual clutter. So something that is relatively plain, probably black and white.
Okay.
Maybe I've even found that I prefer the sort of dot paper or grid paper rather than the lines.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So that would be another helpful item.
Yeah.
So grid paper, because you can probably find that.
Yeah, I have some grid notebooks, so I can probably find
Okay.
similar. And yeah, I mean, ideally, I'd like something that can sort of compartmentalize the different kinds of tasks that I'm working on and the different deadlines.
Okay.
I guess we all have sort of these, and I think it sort of came up in the discussion yesterday, but there are these sort of things that we can do if we have downtime, but I guess I don't want to look at those things all the time, you know, and I feel like sometimes in my current process or when I was doing I tried the sort of bullet journal method for a little while, and I felt like whenever I opened it, it was just like all the tasks I could possibly do. And so if there was a space to write down sort of the things that you could do if you had a chunk of time, or things to do, projects that can be taken on in a spare afternoon or something like that. But just to really, I guess, compartmentalize, to have, I would like, I guess, to have more like categories and more discrete things, because if I'm looking at like short-term things for some translation project that I'm looking at, I don't want to also see my teaching schedule for the week, even though it's also short term. And like, I don't want to see the emails that I have to send to people about like conferences for my PhD or like.
Sure.
It needs to be sort of clean in that way.
How about a binder?
I haven't considered a binder.
Would that be too bulky to travel with?
I'm not sure. It could be. I could try it.
Well, I'm just getting this idea because that would allow you to just open the section that you want to see.
Yeah.
And you don't have to bother with the other parts that you don't want to see at the moment. And you could fill a binder with grid paper.
Yes, I could. I also kind of like the idea of being able to take things out when I'm done with them.
Oh, okay.
If it seems like a sort of unsung advantage of the binder form.
Yeah, or a note that you feel like, yeah, that's not it. You can just tear it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing to try. Definitely. So do you have any suggestions about, like, I think I mentioned at the beginning, one thing that I sort of struggle with is like how when to adapt versus try something new. Do you have an amount of time where I'm just thinking even in terms of the kinds of categories to keep, like, would you say do something for a month, and then if there's something you think is missing, add another tab and recalibrate, or add?
Yeah, I would experiment with it for a month. That sounds like a good idea, because you said that your time horizon is kind of that long. Yeah. So after a month, you would probably have a good idea, is this serving me the way I envision? And what's really the most important thing here, what you highlighted in your question, you want something that does not make you feel stressed or guilty.
Yes.
So it seems like if you're focusing in on just this one thing that you want to see at a time,
Yeah.
and then you could add or subtract tabs that aren't filling that purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds really good. Sorry, I'm writing something.
Yes. So in terms of the concrete action that you wanted to have, what do you have now?
Now I think I mean concrete. So when I said concrete, I was thinking for myself, it'd be good to just have something like immediately that I can do right now.
Okay.
So the thing that I was thinking that I could do right now is to write down what those tabs would need to be.
Okay, great.
Based on some of my old lists and projects that I'm dealing with. And then my slightly longer term, but still quite short term goal is to start doing it either in, I'm just trying to think, I probably have an extra notebook that I could put some sticky, whatever those things are called, add little tabs to and try that way, or just to go out and get a binder and try it. And maybe the goal will be for maybe maybe next week, maybe 5 days, to write down my notes on just one piece of paper and then assess whether I need to write them down, and at the end of the day, and then if I feel like I do need to write them down, then transfer it to that notebook.
Okay.
Because I'm afraid if I just start writing a notebook, I'm going to get a lot of useless things like cook dinner or
That's not useless.
take the chicken out of the freezer. Probably doesn't
Yeah.
be recorded for posterity. But
right. So those short-term reminders don't need to live in this binder necessarily.
Or maybe they could, but I guess I want to sort of pare down on that instinct, because I feel like it's excessive. Because I'll be reading a book and then I'll be like, oh, I need to do this thing. Help, where's a scrap of paper? And I would just love to not do that, because I'm gonna remember whatever it is later. And I think that maybe that impulse comes from some of I do poetry translation. So sometimes you're not doing anything related and you think of a phrase and it needs to be written down now, or you're absolutely not going to remember it.
Yeah.
But
for that, I can totally see it.
Yeah. But
but if you had a tab for poetry,
yes,
that note could go there. That way it's recorded and you can go back to some other task.
Yes. And then I won't, I can just write down things like that, but not everything probably.
Okay. Yeah.
But just to try to to try to slowly cure myself of that habit, or maybe be more critical about seeing what I'm actually writing down and whether it's useful or not.
Good.
Yeah. How's
well,
that?
see, you have a little bit of action to go by, and
this is great.
Maybe take a look at stores that sell office supplies. All the school supplies are coming on sale, so there's binders for you name it, they have it.
Yeah, I'll see if I can see if they have a slim one. I think that would be great. Thank you so much. This was really fun, actually.
Great. I'm glad you got something from it. Thank you for your willingness to have that conversation in front of an audience. Very good. I would love to know what you decide, and send me a picture of that, whatever product you settle on, and tell me how that works.
Sure, I will keep you.
Okay. Good. Then I'll throw the discussion open to everybody else. You are now feel free to unmute your mics if you have another question or would like to discuss something else. I see there's something happening in the chat. It was about Trello. What was that? I didn't have time to read it. Okay. Good. So I hope that was interesting for all of you to see how you can narrow down the requirements you have. And what Kate mentioned that was really insightful is she's seen other people with systems that work for those other people. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean at all that those systems necessarily work for her. That, advertising gives you that idea, oh, this is for everybody, but that's usually not true. So it's important to find a system that actually reflects your preferences and the way you work, and those systems are the ones that tend to stick. Any questions right now?
Can I ask just a really quick question?
Yes.
Because a lot of what Kate was talking about, her situation just resonated very much with me, especially, juggling a lot of things and, the incessant list taking and writing things down. I totally get that. And I think that part of that is the translators need to sort of control their environment and stay on top of things and be very, very meticulous. And I don't think we necessarily have to fight that because it's part of who we are, so it's actually a good thing in a way. And it's nice to cross stuff off, even if every single day I have to defrost the chicken, every single day I have to make dinner or whatever. It feels good to cross it off, right?
Yeah.
But
if it doesn't get overwhelming, yeah.
Right, if it doesn't get overwhelming. But they say that a lot of the times these things will come into your head that you have to do, and you say, oh yeah, I'll remember that. And like 7 out of 8 times you won't. So it's actually not that bad of a thing to write it down. Mm-hmm. But my question is, with all the things that we are juggling as business women or business people, parents, having family, doing marketing. To me, it seems like every single one of these things is important. And I actually believe in my heart of hearts that every single thing, on my list is really important, which makes it difficult for me to prioritize and to not to just look at all this stuff and be like, oh my God, I can never do this, or where do I start? And just becoming overwhelmed, because you can't not, take care of your kids, but you also have to work and pay the bills for your kids. So it's hard to know what to focus on,
Can I say what I've been doing lately?
Please.
I have set a list which assigns things to particular days, but let's say I had a lot of things assigned to yesterday, and some of them can honestly happen in 3 days. So I looked at them and I said, well, this didn't happen today, but it's no skin off anybody's nose. I'll just assign them to Tuesday. Oh, no, blast it. My son's going to be here on Tuesday from Binghamton, New York. They'll just happen the next week. And I just changed the date. And they're happening after he leaves. And that's going to be fine. Because it's just things that can wait. And so as long as I keep them there and I keep them just, and so that's why lists and the app list is really handy, because I can do that without moving. On paper, it's more complicated to do that. On an app, it's easier to do that without it getting all messed up.
That's for you personally, Helen, though.
Well,
right?
Of course, it's for me personally, but I've gone through paper. I've gone through a lot of different things, and so this is easier to carry it around and move in a lot of different places. So I've just gone through paper. I've gone through Post-its. I've gone through Moleskine notebooks. I've gone through pieces of paper that I've lost a million times. I've gone through a lot of different places. And so this is where I am now, using Trello and things and Outlook and Outlook tasks and all of those things combined. And that is what's working for me now. So I'm finding that just helps me to kind of balance things. But, everybody gets their own mileage out of whatever works for them, but that's what's working for me today. I'm not saying your mileage will vary, of course.
Right. So Jennifer, back to your question is, how do you balance everything? So Helen had this suggestion that she looks at everything that is on her plate and then she has the ability to move it around.
Mm-hmm.
I think the awareness too of like, how much time do you have? What's your top priority? And how are they compatible? Like you said, taking care of kids and working, sometimes that's not compatible because the kids want your attention and the work wants your attention. So how do you divide that so they can live side by side and you are calm enough and concentrated enough to actually do both?
Right. That's the question.
Yeah. So that's not something that we can resolve here in 5 minutes, but
no,
that would be the question to ask yourself is when you're intentional with your time is, how is what I'm doing here serving this idea that I want to be balanced?
Right.
But the solution is never to do everything at once.
Right.
Right? Because when you're multitasking and you're translating and your kids are screaming and everything, then there's nothing is working.
Correct. Right. And I think the answers change on a daily basis.
To review, that's what I like to recommend, to really every day be aware of, okay, what's on my plate today?
Right.
What can I do? What's already there? What am I going to say yes to? And what do I have to decline? So I can keep that sanity, because you do want to do this in the long term. And that means you have to keep an amount of time open for yourself and for being healthy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm starting to think that, different formats might be good depending on like a daily, what I have to do today. I probably want that on a piece of paper in front of me or, a whiteboard or something that's not on a word list that I can't see when I'm working on a computer because I got other windows open. And, the long-term list, like Helen was talking about, the things that you can move, maybe not on a piece of paper and just sort of exploring the different formats depending on the time that you have to do it.
That was my comment the other day in one of the email newsletters where I said that master lists sometimes are not what they're made out to be. Because not every list has to be in the same format.
Correct. Yeah.
You may have one in the kitchen with your groceries that could look totally different from the task list at your freelance office.
Right.
So the idea of the master list is that everything is the same, which
right. I just have those for recurring things like meal ideas, just things that come up all the time, like a packing list or things I have to do every single day.
Okay, we have a chat going on here at the same time. I think it's actually going to be reproduced when I submit the recording, so you can all participate in the chat and read that anyway. I was going to answer 2 more questions that we had from the forum. One was about terminology searches. Jessica had asked that, and we had some discussion on that already. I'll just recap that briefly. She wanted to know whether it was more helpful to do terminology searches on the spot, like when you're finding the term, you go online and search for it, then come back to your translation and insert it, etc. And some people had already said, no, I mark the segments in my tool and then I come back to it. I just wanted to say that experiment with that. If you find that this bopping back and forth between online searches and your text are distracting, then batch the terminology searches. Maybe, once an hour you go in and you look for all the stuff that you weren't sure about and confirm it, and then go back to your text. So experiment with different formats there. My experience with the XXX was unpleasant because the XXX that you insert into a segment to remind yourself, I still want to search this. Sometimes it doesn't get picked up by the spell check. So I once submitted a text that still had an XXX in it, and the client was like, what is that? And I was really embarrassed about it. So now I always use words that are misspelled to remind myself in the segment, you still need to look for this, because when I do my spell check of the final text, that will show up, and I'm sure to remove it and make sure that I've replaced all the words. So Jessica, I would say just experiment with it and see what's the most effective use of your focus on the text, so you don't keep breaking out of that nice flow you have in translating sentences and paragraphs, and see how that works. It depends on the text, obviously, too. Then I wanted to make one more remark about the CAT tool discussion. Some people said, well, I'm not sure I need a CAT tool, or this isn't really as user-friendly as I thought it would be. I can completely understand it in Kate's case. She's a literary translator, and no, a CAT tool would probably not do very much for her. But for everyone involved in commercial translation, I think that a CAT tool is kind of an investment in the state of the art. It's the available technology, and if you want to run a long-term profitable practice, that's part of the tool set that you will need. So I would advise you to consider those options instead of retyping text over and over and doing searches possibly over and over. That's not a good use of your time. What else? Any other questions that I haven't answered? Something else you'd like to bring up?
I have a question.
Yes.
That I was curious. I remember earlier you had mentioned something about the possibility of starting an accountability group, or sort of keeping the conversation going. I know for me, especially the beginning of the month, it sort of took a while to sink into this, but I feel like it's been really fruitful, just being able to bounce ideas off of each other and have this community of people who are listening. Possibilities for continuing, or did you give any more thought to the accountability?
I have, yes. I was wondering how we could do that, because if I throw it completely open, then it will most likely fizzle. So I would need a commitment from everybody. Yes, I want to do this, and we're going to get together once or twice a month. That's probably all we can do.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we should have like fixed dates for Zoom calls, just like this one. That if you cannot attend, that's fine. I would record them and I would post them. But the part about the commitment, I'm not clear about at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely be interested in that. I think realistically, probably, yeah, every other week would be great.
Yes.
Not more than that.
I know from my own experience that when someone holds me to something I said I would do, then I'm much more likely to follow through.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I think these half-hour sessions are pretty good because they're targeted and organized. And you've been pretty good about focusing on whatever's been brought up in the session. So that's been awesome, Dorothea. I really like how you've been running these. You're amazing. So, but I also like how the Slack group has been going. That people have been asking things and commenting, and it's been really nice. So would the Slack group continue just the way it is, and people can? Or will you start a new one? I have to talk to
Karen about it. That would be good to have this forum because we're all in different time zones. We may have to start a separate Slack group because this one we will probably close down in a week or so. So we may start a Slack group for this accountability for the people who are interested in it, where we can then set topics and have discussions together.
That's an idea. Or you could start a Google group, which is pretty easy too.
That is easy, yes, but it involves time, right? And it involves commitment.
Mhm.
So that's the part that I'm still kind of stuck on, because if we
Yeah.
all say, oh, that sounds like a great idea, then life will happen and it'll just go away. If
The
we want
summer,
something to really be there, then we need to create a form of commitment to it.
how about once a month in the summer, and then in when it's, because it's more difficult to maintain a commitment in the summer,
That's
and
true.
then in the school year, amp it up to once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then, maybe in November, evaluate and see how it went. But I think in the summer, it's going to be hard to get every 2 weeks, because I'm sorry, but the mountains and the beach kind of
Yeah.
draw when you have
No,
kids.
you're totally right. Yes. So that's a good idea, Helen, to really to let it percolate for a bit and amp it up again in September. I would prefer that too. I'm the same way. I like my summertime.
I think you like your bike or whatever it is you do in the summer.
Yeah. Oh, and here was one more thing that I was going to tell you all. If anyone's interested in being a guinea pig to study coaching with me, we would record telephone calls, and it would follow a certain pattern, something along the lines of what I demoed with Kate earlier, but it would be a set pattern. And so if you're willing to have telephone calls with me that we record, they'll be about an hour long and scheduled at your convenience. Let me know, because I'm always looking for people who are willing to help me train for that and eventually go for certification, which is a very complex and involved process.
What kind of coaching, like what's the subject?
It's always productivity, time management.
Perfect. Pick me.
So send me an email if that's something you're interested in. I can explain to you what's involved and what we would do.
I was thinking a little bit more about this sort of accountability, the like responsibility. Like how do you get the investment to get people to use the to take part in the accountability group, and also I guess my only fear with if it's only once a month, and this is probably kind of a selfish concern, but then if there is a time conflict, it means like you just sort of missed it, which, I guess it depends how many people are involved and what the sort of size of the group is each week or each month. But I was wondering if maybe there could be a different person who was maybe responsible for like encouraging discussion on the Slack group each week. Just to encourage, I'm just trying to think of ways you can sort of encourage people to be invested and to like have a structure in place for it to not fizzle out that involves like slightly less work for you because you shouldn't
I was even tossing around the idea of a charge, a monthly charge, just as a token commitment.
Yeah.
Not that it has to be super expensive, but that you would go, okay, I'm paying for this. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think
so many things online, people go, oh, great idea, and then it's gone.
Yeah. I think that I don't like paying for things, but I think I agree with you. Yes, I would be more likely to to make sure I showed up. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
So I will continue to develop this, because that's an idea I've kind of carried around for a long time. I would love to have this dialogue, and then maybe add future participants from other groups so this dialogue continues.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I know this has been super productive for me and super fruitful and hopefully everything. So I'm definitely invested in keeping it going.
Good. Then I'll suggest we'll leave it at that, and I'll be sure to communicate. I was thinking I would send a list, one more email next week with all the links of the different video recordings.
Yeah.
So in case you missed one or two and didn't have a chance to listen to them, then you don't have to go through all the emails again to find the links.
Perfect idea.
Okay, good. Then, Kate, thanks again for your willingness to be put on the spot. Jennifer, thanks for all your questions. And
Thanks.
I will wrap this recording up right now.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.